Welcome to Casually Dressed Deep Conversation with me, Greg Chalmers, and the David Ginola of Northern Ireland. It's Christopher Shields. How you doing, mate?
Good, mate. I'm going to take that, mate. I'm going to take that. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it, mate. I'm just going to lean in and just go like real big with it. But
You look like somebody who's dressed up as Pirlo for Halloween.
just a fat Pirlo.
Philo Pirlo.
I'll take it, man. I'll take it.
Yeah. Our guest this evening is founder of Trail West and the MD of the Tiree Whisky Company, Ian Smith. How you doing?
Very well. How are you guys?
Smashing, mate. We're doing well. We're doing well.
Good. Surviving. I mean, like we were just discussing. Been an eventful bedtime looking for my children today, so it's. But other than that, real good.
How is the weather up in Tyree today?
Fairly windy today. We've had a good spell of weather actually last week, and then just today it was gusting up to about 40 miles per hour. It's good though. Keeps you going, and it's nice and fresh when you go outside. But wee bit of rain, which isn't as fun. But when the sun came out, it was quite nice.
Lovely. That's what I like to hear. Somebody who's a bit more enthusiastic about the Scottish weather than I am.
Well, Tyree's the sunniest place in the UK, so that's why we're lucky up here.
Is it actually?
On record, aye. Sunniest place.
Wow.
No way.
In terms of sunshine
of the north.
Why exactly? Well done, Chris. Done your research.
That's
Sorry, it's just Jamie said it about a million times when he was on the podcast last time.
Ingrained in.
Hawaii the north, is it?
Hawaii the north, absolutely.
So, Ian, tell us, how has your lockdown COVID experience been?
Probably better than others. Other people's experiences, but still not great. Before COVID hit, I used to travel away most weekends with a band, doing gigs throughout Scotland, further afield sometimes, and obviously that's just been stopped with lockdown. So yeah, life's been good enough up here. We've had a wee bit of not normality, but a wee bit less restrictive because we've only got one policeman in Tyree. I don't know if Jamie told you that as well. So, not that we break the rules, but you can get away with a wee bit more and things like that. So, yeah, it's a great place to be in lockdown, and we don't have the restrictions you guys have got at the moment. We're still level 3, whereas all you guys are still a bit of I don't know what it is in Northern Ireland right enough, but
level 8.
I would, to be honest, even if there was levels, I don't think Stormont would say anything. I mean, we seem to be about 4 weeks behind everyone else, and you get kind of you don't get much in the way of information. Yeah. It's just the statements that come out, but it's just words that you're none the wiser for it. Yeah. So yeah.
Well, we've kind of forgotten about level systems up here, as I say, because things are a bit more leeway, but we're still careful. We're not. It's not like we're taking the mick too much, and it's. But no, it's good to be here, and you've got the freedom of the beaches and just don't have to worry about seeing folk when you go out the door and stuff like that. But no, definitely missing the trips to the mainland, but we'll get there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hopefully it won't be too much longer. So, I want to talk to you about the Tiree Whisky Company. I want you to give us a wee bit of history about it first of all.
Yeah, so we started the company years ago, myself and my good friend Alan Campbell, who also plays in the band with me. And the idea was that Tyree's got an amazing history of distilling that not many people know about, or they do now, I suppose, since we've been spreading the word. But it began with, there was a few legal distilleries here about maybe 200 years ago, probably later. And then, but a lot of people knew how to make it here, and they were making it illegally. So there was, I think in 1800, there was 200 people caught distilling illegally. And yeah, exactly. Near enough. The population was a lot bigger then, but it was pretty wild. They were just using small stills, I suppose, and they were all growing barley. So they had barley available, which obviously used to make whiskey. And we just thought it was great stories. We thought, why is nobody making this A, illegally, or B, legally? So we thought we'd go for the safer approach, and we did everything by the book, and we've now got our own distillery in Tyree. So as I say, we started the company years ago, but gin was released in 2017, and initially it wasn't made in Tyree. We used to collect a lot of the botanicals and the seaweed here, send them to a distillery in the mainland, and they made the gin. But that was all the money made from that was used to set up our own distillery. So we've got a shed next door that we converted into a distillery, and now we make the gin here. And we've just about to start whiskey production as well. So all quite exciting. That's pretty much what we've done. So it's on the back of that story of distilling being so big here.
That's really interesting. So tell me, what's the significance of the seaweed?
Well, I think that a lot of gins these days try and kind of use local ingredients.
Mm-hmm.
And Tyree's kelp forest, kelp obviously a type of seaweed, are the fourth largest in Scottish waters. So we get a lot of kelp washing up on the shore. We only use a tiny bit per distillation, but the kelp gives it a kind of really nice sweetness and also a wee saltiness. So like other distilleries that are using seaweed are like Harris Distillery, Barra Distillers and Barra as well. They use carrageen, which is a type of seaweed. So it's just to try and give a full picture of the tastes that are available in Tyree and try and kind of sum up the island in a drink, I suppose.
So how do you learn how to do this? Because, I mean, see if somebody was like, right, big man, I want you to make a Cardress gin. I'd just feel like, right, I'll just get some grass cuttings. Maybe going
good at the golf course.
I just had to cut a couple of sycamore leaves. Then, so how did you learn the process?
I think you're on to a winner there.
Just got to write that down, boys.
Need any advice? Just give me an email. Well, to be completely honest, when we started, we had no clue what we were doing, but we just wanted to do it, and we thought if we lead it and we speak to the right people, surely we could get some get some help with this and get to a stage where we're making it. So the distillery that made it before was down in London. So Alan, my business partner's a crofter. He knew a lot of the ingredients that were available in the croft. So we just honestly, just like you're saying, just picked a few flowers, went down and got a bit of seaweed. We knew that these were used previously. It wasn't quite as kind of laid back as that. We knew, like, for example,
I've got some berries here. Aye, bring them down.
The water mint we use, so we use water mint as one of the ingredients. That used to be used in tea in Tyree historically, so you'd have like mint tea. Mm-hmm. We knew all these things would give these kind of flavours, and we took them down to the distillery that made the gin initially, which was based in London, and they came up with a recipe using those ingredients along with other ingredients, and then we had our taste of Tyree, and then we were able to take that back, and when it came to distilling here, we got a 2-day course with the folk that installed the still. Two guys from Europe, and they were great crack and just kept us right. And honestly, it's really simple to make booze. I don't know why more people aren't doing it. It's really easy. You just need the right equipment. I hope HMRC aren't watching because they'll be thinking I'm encouraging that sort of discipline. If you're going to do it, you need to do it by the book, folks. That's all.
Okay, good.
Yeah, of course.
That's just a wee disclaimer at the bottom of this. Just run along the bottom of the screen. So that's really interesting. So, I mean, the production of whiskey and the production of gin, there must be a huge difference. Obviously, there's a difference in ingredients, but is there a difference in the distilling process?
Yeah, huge. You're exactly right, because some gin distilleries in Scotland do make their own, what we call a base spirit, which is usually made from wheat in the gin production process. But most of them just buy that spirit in from huge distilleries that are making loads of it, because it's basically just a flavourless alcohol. It's like a 96% vodka we buy in. And what you do is you redistill. It's not for the faint-hearted anyway. You need to be fairly hardy to be able to consume that stuff. But yeah, you then redistill that with your botanicals, and that's what's called rectification. And that flavours the spirit, and then you then proof it down to your desired percentage of alcohol, which is probably about, for us it's 40% for the Tyree gin and 37.5% for our pink gin. But with whiskey, and we've started the process just on a really small scale here, and again you're making the spirit from scratch. So we buy in barley, and you'd go through the whole process of what you would with the wheat for that spirit. So basically you start off by seeping, kind of putting the barley in hot water, and it releases a kind of sugary, you get away with what's called a sugary wort, it's called. And then you add yeast, that creates a kind of beer-like substance. Then you distill that once, distill it twice, and you've got your new make spirit for what you hope will be whiskey one day, but you need to leave it in barrels. But yeah, so it's quite a different process for us, but it's all quite interesting. Hope I'm not boring you yet.
No, not at all. I love all that stuff. See, because as well, right, there is an element of tradition in it.
Yeah.
And I just think it's really interesting that obviously the location that you are from, you're obviously it's the accordion you play, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And you play in a traditional band, and you're making whiskey. I don't think there is a more Scottish man out there. unless suddenly you were just like, and also Greg, I play the bagpipes and I own a haggis. That's about it.
I play the pipes, but I don't own a haggis. But.
Yeah, but sorry, we'll just say you do, right? So would you say that growing up that you were just really aware of all these sort of elements of tradition, and you're kind of carrying them on to the next generation?
Yeah, well, I'd like to also just going back on your comment about being Scottish. I'm actually wearing a kilt, but you just can't see it because the camera. That's the great thing about Zoom. Nobody never know. But yeah, we grew up in I grew up in a household where my dad was actually a Gaelic singer. I'm a fluent Gaelic speaker, like Jamie is, that you had on the programme as well. So yeah, it's very much Tyree, steeped in music and Gaelic since we were young, and that's one thing that's been lacking. Like in terms of thinking about traditional work, you know, we've got a lot of fishing, we've got a lot of crofting here, which is still very traditional, but distilling was something that hadn't been done here. The last legal distillery in Tyree was 1801, I think.
Wow.
Until we started in 2019. So, yeah, really kind of trying to reconnect with that tradition, but it's something that I've always been aware of, and I know when I speak to folk, I know that I'm a quintessential kind of Islander, proper Teuchter style. I love that. I don't care.
That's good though.
100%, man.
I love telling folk distillery, play music, speak Gaelic, wear a kilt all the time.
Joe, I think as well though. I think the mainland has kind of lost that. In certain, I mean, more so in Glasgow. I think Edinburgh's like shortbread tin Scottish.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's a very Anglified Scotland. Yeah. Glasgow, I don't even know what's happened there, but and it seems like it's just that as you graduate north, people just start getting a bit more. Well, the accent changes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But I think that tradition being carried on is really, really important, because ultimately, if you don't, then everybody just becomes the same. You know. Yeah,
that's it. I mean, yeah, and we do see that. You know, Tyree is getting less and less traditional, as you would say, but the great thing about Tyree is it's got the traditional side of things, but it's also got a really kind of innovative tourist market, and there's a lot of different people living here now. If you go back 30 years ago, it would have been mainly crofters, Gaelic speakers, which to me would have been great, but now we've got a really diverse island, which is just as good, and it's quite healthy that there's so many different types of people living here now, and shows that the island's sustainable as well for the future, hopefully.
How many people stay on Tyree?
It's only 650 last year. It's tiny, absolutely tiny.
What was it beforehand when they were all making dodgy whiskey?
I think it was about 5,000 then.
Wow, really?
It's gone down seriously. Like when I was born in '93, and in 1991 the census was 790, I think. So even since then, just gone down and down. But it's the way things are going. City living's so much more. So much easier. All your phones nowadays are all built for living in the city, and I still don't get a signal at my house. Like I've had to go out in the bike and get powered up for this broadband today. We're not that bad. We've got really good broadband, but I honestly don't get a phone signal at my house.
Wow. So you just need to go cycle down the street. Hello.
There's actually one spot, if I lean out the window and I have to kind of hang out, that's no word of a lie. If I hang out my bedroom window, I get a signal. But luckily, I've got the Wi-Fi calling now. So I was going to actually say there's this modern thing called Wi-Fi calling. That sounds a bit ironic coming from somebody like that.
So do you, as far as the traditional music thing, has that just been something that from school you've just always done? and then it just became one of those things. It was the direction you were always going to go in.
Yeah, I started playing the box when I was really young, playing the accordion, and I kind of lost interest quite. Yeah, like I did it for a year, then lost interest. But then I started again when I was about 9 at school from the same teacher, same guy that's taught us all, Tyree, Gordon Connell's his name. And he taught like some of the bands that are a bit more well known than us, like Skerry Vore and Skipnish, and Skipnish are Jamie's cousin. He leads that band. But anyway, yeah. So I always kind of knew I wanted to do music, and then when we went on a school trip to Glasgow, we went to the RSAMD as it was at the time, and I decided I wanted to go to there. And yeah, when it came to applying for uni, I managed to get in. And before that, I'd been playing with Trail West, so I was making good money at it. Good money for a teenager. I just knew it was the way. And see some of the crack you have over the years. It's brilliant. So that's the best part about the job, is having fun and meeting loads of people and having a few drams and just getting general crack. But aye.
So how did you find living in Glasgow?
I loved Glasgow. So I lived there for 8 years. It was bloody great. Loved it. Just the whole thing about living in the city, being away from home, and I missed home a lot. In summer, I missed home more. I always find, you guys might disagree, but I always find when the weather's good, when you're in a kind of built-up area, there's not really much to do apart from go to the park and get steam.
Yeah, it's shit, man. Well, I'm lucky. Chris and I are both quite lucky because he comes from Hillsborough, I come from Cardross, and so we are half an hour from Glasgow, but you're still far enough out of Glasgow that I can walk up from behind my house and I can see the Clyde on one side and Loch Lomond on the other side.
Yeah, that's great.
So it's a good balance, but I totally know what you mean. I spent a year in New Zealand, in Auckland, and I didn't leave the city for like 8 months.
Yeah.
And you do get everything's on top of you. It seems like more clammy, unclean. It's not for me. I like the fresh air in the face. That's me.
Yeah, well, that's exactly. I don't know what it's like where you are, Chris. When out there, are you built up or anything, or are you?
No, so I'm not actually too bad. I've actually kind of moved to a very similar kind of setup, as in that I'm kind of 20 minutes outside of Belfast, so I don't have to go too far to be surrounded by kind of greenery and stuff like that. So I'm all right. But during the first lockdown, we were living with my in-laws because we recently moved over here. I moved over to Northern Ireland as the first lockdown kicked in, which was ideal. I mean, it was real. It was great timing and terrible timing in the same breath, really. But yeah, we were living in Belfast at that time, and it was just it was a bit like just concrete everywhere. You know what I mean? It was a bit kind of like it was a struggle for me. I much prefer being out and about or be kind of having a bit more space.
It does make a difference. Sorry, my laptop's going off there. I hope you've probably heard it, because I don't have I've got my phone on silent and my laptop's still going off. But,
no, it's alright. We never heard it. Don't worry.
But I see the that's the thing. Like when I was in Glasgow, I just wanted to be here and going out in the boat or going to the beach or whatever when the weather's good. And as I say, all I found was what we do. The sun's out. It was like, let's go to the park and get steaming. And
Kelvin Grove.
Yeah, I lived right next to Kelvin Grove, so I don't really see the point I would have a barbecue. It was good crack, and then you'd have to hide your beers when the police came by and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You're in Tyree.
They take it you don't need to do that in Tyree. The one bolus.
Well, even then, we're quite lucky because I think it's like Edinburgh. Edinburgh, you can drink the street in Edinburgh as well.
I don't understand that.
I think it's a local. Councils can come up with the rules, I think.
Right. So it's just Glasgow. No. Yeah. Well, the thing is, we're Argyll and Bute here.
I mean, you get it with Glasgow. You get it. Like with the west of Scotland, they've not got a healthy relationship with alcohol.
No.
Really, and drinking. Really. I mean, when you go elsewhere and you see other kind of cultures and how they approach drinking, whereas with us, I mean, by and large, it's like, right, well, I'm going to get pissed my pants drunk tonight, so you guys in? Well, yeah, let's do it. Brilliant. I had a great night.
No,
exactly. A great night. Sick all over myself. Hung over for the rest of the weekend. Quality. Can't wait till next weekend.
You're dying for the first few days of the week, and then you're like, right, it's Friday again, let's go for it.
Let's go for it.
So with the distillery, then, if you're the first one since, did you say 1801?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So was there a bit of a buzz about the island when you
I think
guys?
there was. There was certainly. I think loads of folk were excited that distilling was coming back, but it's still on such a small scale here, so we're not like we're not able to. It's not. We're not employing anyone yet, which is when it will get exciting. But yeah, I think that people were quite. I mean, we know everybody. Everybody knows each other, so it's pretty kind of. As I say, it's pretty strange in that way compared to the way folk are in the mainland. But we know everyone, or almost everyone, and they all knew we were going to be doing it, so it wasn't much of a surprise. But I think there's still a bit of excitement. So
Yeah, no,
can't keep a secret. Can't keep a secret.
Yeah, all right, yeah. I was told.
That's cool though. Right. So how many bottles do you guys make like on a month, say?
It's hard to say. I mean, we just take each month as it comes. We don't really have any set figures that we try and get, but I wouldn't even know where to start. Probably about between 400 and 500 a month.
That's a lot of bevy.
Well, it's really small compared to other distilleries, but because we're not, we're still playing in the band, although we're not with COVID. Like, we've got a balance there, so we don't. It's not like we treat the distillery as a full-time job. It's just something that's there that can make us money and keep us going. But yeah, it's good fun as well. It's good fun having the samples and.
So tell us about the pink gin then.
Yeah, so that was last year's. We've been speaking about it for years, and the strange thing is, neither of us like pink gin. I'm trying to get these guys to stop texting me because this is starting to annoy me, but I don't know how to tell them 2 seconds. Sorry, I'm.
It's probably because it's the first time you've had signal in about 3 weeks, probably.
I'm just going to say to him, stop texting coming through on podcast. I told him I was doing it. The guy's actually my business partner, Alan. He's texting about something that we're trying to sort out. And I was like, stop texting. So yeah, as you say, it's the first time I've had signal in a wee while, so you can forget him. But yeah, the pink gin was basically, neither of us actually like, as I say, anything sweet. So it was quite hard to come up with it. But luckily, Alan's mum and a few of her friends were quite into pink gins. They were our kind of samplers. We made a few different products, and once we got one that we thought was ready, we gave them a try, and it was tastes really good. And it was just something we wanted to do because there wasn't many pink gins in any of the other islands, so we thought, why not try it and get it released. So it's mainly raspberries that it's made from. But,
is it really?
Yeah, it's really good. It's really good stuff. I shouldn't be saying that when I'm making it, but it's, it just goes down like water. And the other thing as well is it's an opaque bottle, so you can't see through the bottle at all. So when you look at the bottle, you think you've got like a few more drams in it, and you pour one, you're like, it's empty. That's what a few folk moaned about, but finish a bottle before you know it.
So do you guys bottle it yourselves?
Yeah, do everything on site.
That's amazing.
It's only a small, I'd say it's really small. If I went and showed you it just now, you'd be like, oh, it's not that amazing. But even then, the costs involved in getting a distillery set up, but good fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's just something that I've never had a conversation with somebody who knows about it. It's something that's always kind of, being a Scottish person, you kind of take a strange pride in that we make whiskey, but we don't. I couldn't tell you the first thing about it.
That's it. You always you feel like you lose some points when you kind of meet somebody from somewhere else. Oh yeah, man, whiskey, and you're like, don't know that whiskey.
I think they just assume that every Scottish person drinks it, but I don't know many folk my age that actually, apart from the islanders, that drink much whiskey.
I drink whiskey's my
drink it. Well, that's good.
Yeah,
I'm not. I mean, my dad can drink whiskey like it's water. It's at a harrowing rate. Honestly, it's
just a hangover, mate. That's that. Like, you get a different. See, with whiskey, I think you get a different type of drunk with whiskey. It's more of a high, and then the next day, man, there's just some guy with a sledgehammer smashing the living daylights out your forehead.
I don't get that. I have to find that if I'm in the pub and drinking like vodka with these cheap mixers, the scoosh stuff out the tap, that's when I get a hangover. My dad used to always say that, and I was like, it's not the drink that gives me a hangover, it's the scooshy stuff. I said, Dad, you were drinking whiskey last night. He's like, oh, God. I find whiskey, I'm fresh after I drink whiskey, unless I've had an absolute bucket load. But
I can't. It's just a different type of hangover for me. I can't. whoa, even the thought of it, like just now, it's gave me a wee bit of the fear.
Yeah.
You guys should. I was just thinking, if you don't know much about whiskey and you ever want to know, because you guys won't be far from Auchentoshan Distillery.
Oh, that's only like 10, 15, 20 minutes max away for us. Yeah.
I've never done the tour, but I'd love to do it. It's,
I did the photographs for Glengoyne's website years ago.
right.
Yeah.
What is Glengoyne? Is that north of Glasgow? Is it?
It's like, I'm trying to think, it was probably about 50 minutes from me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's some gaff they've got there, man.
Yeah.
It's massive.
I think it's Glengoyne, not the one that was in Still Game when they.
It was. Filtered through the heather.
God, Gable.
God, Gable's an asshole.
I love that episode.
It's my favourite bit where he's just steaming. He's like, filtered through the heather.
The bonny heather. Any Still Game quotes, man.
Aye. Oh, listen, we had Tom Ury on the podcast, and he's the guy that played Martin. You know,
Martin.
Maybe if your mum, if you do a job, Martin, I'll wipe your ass for you, Martin. We had him on the podcast, and he said that when he said he recorded that, and then it was about 6 months later, nobody had told him it had been on. He was walking through Braehead Shopping Centre, folk were just going, maybe if a jobby, Martin, your mum wipe your ass for you, Martin. And he was like, oh, what the fuck's going on?
You must just see if you're an actor and you get a part of that. You must just be thinking, Christ, what the hell is going to happen here?
I completely forgot about it. He said he went in for hospital when it was in hospital as well, wasn't he?
Aye.
Going in for some quite major surgery, and the hospital porter's pushing him along. Oh, how are you feeling? Oh yeah, a little bit nervous and stuff. Maybe if you get a job, Martin, your mum will wipe your ass for you, Martin. Yeah, brilliant. Cheers for that.
Good old Scottish humour, you can't beat it.
Imagine that you're going in for major surgery. You're just looking up at a guy going, fucking dick.
It'd probably lighten you up. You'd be like, oh, great.
No, I think, do you know the thing is, see with Tom, like, I think he kind of resents the attention. Yeah. Like, I think he would love it if he just get paid to do acting jobs and nobody saw them. Do you know what I mean? Because then nobody will say, but then back to him. But he's, that was so funny. So funny.
It sounds like a character.
Oh, that podcast you did with him was from start to finish. Yeah. Incredible. He was so funny, man, right off the bat.
I mean, arguably it's one of my worst performances in the podcast because I just didn't speak. But it was because he was so good. I was basically just kind of sat like listening to it live, just going, right, I need to get involved in this conversation. Yeah. Right, make sure you say something. Okay, I'll ask him a question about that. And then he started another story. And I'll be like, oh wow. And then before you know it, I've gone, I've said nothing. I just sat here. So I'm just sat in the top corner of the screen going and laughing occasionally.
So Ian, what I wanted to talk to you about was the Tyree Music Festival.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would imagine that you've got something to do with it, since it seems like everybody in Tyree does.
Aye. Oh, what a weekend that is. So we play. I'm not actually involved in the actual team. I'm good friends with all the boys that run it. Or all the team that runs it. Jamie's involved, of course. But yeah, we're quite heavily involved both in the music side of things with Trail West, and also we've got a bar. Well, TMF owned the bar, so they bought a container, just a shipping container, and got it. They offered us the chance to brand it. And it was the year my father passed away, actually, and they wanted to call it Bernie's Bar. My dad was called Bernie. So we got it all branded smart as anything. So we just paid for the branding. It was a really nice gesture from the boys, and it looks the absolute part. It looks really professional, the bar, and sits just outside the main tent at the festival. So yeah, we're involved in that point of view. So we kind of give them a decent price with the gin every year, and we work together on various different things. So yeah, involved in that way, and even just as a local, really proud of it. Because we were talking there about Tyree only having 650 people, probably less now, to be honest, because that was back in 2000 and when was the last census? 2011, thank God. So that's 10 years ago. Yeah. It's really gone down a bit since then. But yeah, so you think about this festival here that brings 2,000 people to the island. Unbelievable.
It must be amazing for the economy of the island.
I think they did studies into TMF themselves, and it was pretty, I can't remember the exact figures off the top of my head, but I know that the last time there was a festival, we had an open day at the distillery. So basically, everybody come in, see what we do here, come and speak to us. We had a bar. We were selling gin, selling all sorts of stuff, jackets, you name it. and we made an absolute fortune that day. But even more so, it was more important for people to see the distillery. But we couldn't believe it. Like, that there was, I think we probably had between 300 and 400 people on site that day.
Wow.
Over the course of the day. It was always, we had a kind of limit on the capacity, but over the course of the day, folk would come for an hour here, come for half an hour there, and I reckon going by the kind of the money that went through the till, I'd say there was between 300 and 400 people there. So
that's incredible, man. Because we were talking about doing it. We were talking about coming.
Yeah,
because because after speaking, just before we'd spoken to Jamie, I had looked at it online. I thought that looks a bit of me, and obviously last year it didn't go ahead. But do you think it'll go ahead this year?
It's already cancelled this year, unfortunately.
Oh, is it?
Aye. But I think hope so next year. I can't be asked in this lockdown anymore. Yeah. But, I think next year, and honestly, you boys would love it. It's great crack. Like, it's such a good range of music, a range of people that come. It's not all traditional stuff. We've got a wee bit of mixture of stuff, and even if you can come for a week, if you could come do a bit of surfing. Tyree's great in the summer. There's so much to do: surfing, beach, fishing, sea tours. Gin tours.
Get a gin tours in there.
I see what you did there. I see what you did. I like it. Well done.
Me as well. Plenty to do, and it's a great place to be. And if the weather's good, you don't even need to have anything to do. You can just go on the beach, and a few beers, barbecue, wee fire at night. Can't beat it.
Brilliant. So tell me a wee bit about Trail West and the origins of it and what you guys are all about.
Well, that started from Tyree as well. Funnily enough, everyone's Tyree. I'm worse than Jamie with the Hawaii of the North. But yeah, so we started here when we were younger as a wee band. There was 5 of us at the time, and we just did like Kayleys, dances and played in the local pub. And we had what we thought was a big venture at the time to go over to the Isle of Call, which is the island next to us, for their call show, and that was bloody great crack. And that's when we realised we kind of wanted to make a go at it, but a few others in the band weren't so keen. They had other jobs and different things. They weren't able to commit. But myself and the drummer, who was in the band at that point, are the only 2 left from the founder members. So we got a boy from US, Johnny, joining us, another boy from Tyree, Alan Campbell, and we've got 2 other new additions that joined the band, I think, in 2016 or 17. Jonathan, who's from Glasgow, and Alan Nairn, who's from Ardnamurchan, up on the west coast. So yeah, and it started from there, and basically started off as a kind of Cayley band, and did some great tours of the west coast, and then kind of started to get things, try and do a few kind of bigger things, and done a few good festivals now. We're still a wee bit behind some of the other bands, but it's great fun when you do these gigs and just enjoy it. So that's the story basically.
So have you travelled much, or has it just been round about Scotland?
No, we've done a few other things. We played in Belgium once, in the European Parliament. That was great fun. We went all the way over there, and we only played for 10 minutes. So that was a good trip. Unreal. And then and the great thing was, it was actually for the launch of Google's Gaelic translation app thing. Google, you get Google Translate. Yeah. They've got a Gaelic one, and they wanted us to play at the launch of it. So we played we were there, and so was the ex-lead singer of Runrig, Donny Monroe, and he sang a song and it was the drummer that usually plays with us couldn't make it, but my wee brother's a drummer, so he came with us. And then we were actually in Belgium, and then my friend from here in Tyree, Hugh, texted me saying, "Are you in Brussels tonight?" And we were like, "Aye, we are." He's like, "So am I. Fancy meeting up for a pint?" So we went right in for a pint in Brussels and ended up going to, I think the place was called Delirium.
That's not Tyree, you can tell that's not Tyree.
That's the name of the local pub here. But yeah, so Belgium was good. We played for a couple of years. We were playing in Singapore every year as well for their supper.
So I've always wondered about this, right? See these countries that are obviously not Scotland, right? Singapore and all that. Why are they having Burns nights?
I think there's probably a lot of reasons, but you forget how many Scottish people live in these places actually, or people of Scottish descent. So it was the reason we got that gig in Singapore was because the woman who was the chieftain, is what they call the leader of the society, was from Lewis, and she saw us play at a wedding. And she said, I want to get you guys over to Singapore. And then when we went there, the whole committee in Singapore was basically made up of Scottish and English people. And a couple of I don't know what you call them, Singaporeese, I don't know, Singapore folk anyway. And they were right into Scottish culture. And it was great, really good fun. And it was in the Shangri-La we played, which is a big hotel. I think it's famous because I think George Bush stayed in there when he was in Singapore at one point. But crack was great, and it was all free drink. Like, folk were paying, like, I can't remember, I think it was $400 a ticket to go to this thing. And we were getting the whole thing for free, but just having to play at the end. So, and it was great fun. And we got really well looked after by the committee. But funnily enough, talking about when we were in Belgium, we used to play in a pub in Glasgow called the Park Bar. And
I know it well.
You'll know it, aye. It's well known as a kind of Island and Highlanders kind of place.
Yes.
Yeah. And we were speaking to a friend from Benbecula one night, and he goes to us, what's on this week? And we said, we're going to Singapore on Thursday. So am I. He says, we'll see you there for a pint. I'm like, yes, we will. And right enough, got to Singapore. He says, where are we having a pint? Went to the gig. We did, alongside that gig for the Burn Supper, we did a couple of pub gigs. One in this pub called Molly Malone's. And he said, all right, we're in there just setting up for the gig. Next minute, who walked through the door? The boy from Benbecula. And along with him, there was a woman that does a Gaelic radio show, who lives in Singapore for half the year. A boy from Singapore who learnt Gaelic and moved to Scotland that we knew. And then a bunch of young kids came in, well, young kids, 18, 19-year-olds, and came in dancing. And then they obviously saw the pipes and all that. And they said, we're from Scotland as well. Where are you guys from? I said, Tyree. And they said, do you know a Bernie Smith, who's my wee brother? He was named after me, from Tyree. And I was like, I do. And then they explained, and we ended up having loads of mutual friends. That was in the middle of bloody Singapore.
Wow.
That is incredible.
That's freaky, man.
And they didn't even know we were playing. They just came in and they're like, it was just like random. You see Scottish people all over the place abroad. But imagine somebody coming in and saying, the only person I know from Tyree is Bernie Smith, and it's actually my brother. So interesting, huh? Wild.
That happened to me in New Zealand. I was walking out of Auckland along past Mission Bay. It must be about 8 or 9 miles from Auckland. The middle of nowhere. I was there with this lassie, and two of us are just walking along. And then out of the woods, now to this day I don't know what he's doing in the woods, but he came out of the woods and he just stopped about 10 feet away from me, and he was like, Greg! And I was like, whoa! And do you know that way that your brain can't compute something like that? Because you go, you're not meant to be here.
Yeah.
But it turns out I worked with a guy at a place called the Kilted Skirley in Balloch. It was aye. But literally, I didn't know he was in New Zealand. He didn't know I was in New Zealand. And we met in the middle of nowhere. I mean, fair enough, you bumped into him in the city centre. But in the middle of nowhere, he's just like, wait! So bizarre, man. So bizarre.
Mental. Mental. Great when that happens, though. Great.
Yeah. So, tell me, what's just going back to all things gin and whiskey, what's the plans for the future? Global domination?
I wish. But as I say, maybe one day. But as I say, see the stills we've got now for the whiskey production, they're so small, so we're just kind of building things up slowly. The idea is to get, put some casks away. Obviously, you need to wait at least 3 years. So if we can get some casks put away and maybe in anything from 3 to 6 years, whenever we feel that the whiskey's ready, get the first bottling released, which would be only the whiskey we made this year. So that'd be the bottling. And then for next year, maybe do some private cask sales.
Is it sherry casks you're using? Sherry barrels?
We're actually using a mixture. At the moment, we've only got, because it's such small equipment we've got what's called quarter casks, which are bourbon casks that are altered to be a bit smaller.
Right, okay.
So we're using them, and we're using virgin oak casks, which are basically, they've never been used for anything before. So it's just wood that's been charred. And Auchentoshan actually do a really nice virgin oak whiskey. So yeah, doing that, and then we might get some sherry casks to finish them off. That's what a lot of them do. They kind of sherry cask finished. So, I mean, I'm learning all the time. It's my business partner that knows most about it. I'm just I do all the paperwork and stuff like that.
You're in the admin department.
But I do the sampling as well. But as well you should.
I just, do you know, I just think for, obviously, whiskey production in particular has been going on since fucking God knows how long. And I just think how scientific the whole thing is. Do you know what I mean? Even you're talking about finishing them off in the sherry cask. Like, it's just wonder where all that came from. Who at one point went, do you know what I think we should do? I've got an old sherry cask in the back there. Do you know what I mean? I love all that. Where it all comes from.
I always wondered, like, not so much that, but any science in general, like, who thought to do this to then work out? I bet you all of the time, like, especially with whiskey production, it's probably a mistake. No. What the hell's this? I'm feeling funny here. And then trials, there's probably loads of folk have died over the hundreds of years from trying stuff they shouldn't be trying. But yeah, in terms of like flavouring stuff, it must be, you need to have a really good sense of smell and taste and work out how you're gonna what would complement that, you know, in terms of like finishing it in a sherry barrel or anything. But it's mental to think that it's all come down from, as I say, somebody like, what the hell's this stuff doing to me? Feeling a bit lightheaded, and then before you know it, you've got whiskey.
I mean, even what you were talking about with the seaweed, that's something that I think in 1,000 years I would never have thought of. Do you know what I mean? Like, if somebody was like, we need somebody putting this, I'd be like looking at the trees, looking at the ground.
Sycamore leaf.
But at no point when I'm going to go, seaweed.
Put that in. That's going to my drink.
Well, and
again,
it's amazing.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, because in Tyree they make a pudding from seaweed like years ago. It's like a panna cotta, but it's made with seaweed flavouring. It's bloody lovely.
Wow.
So
that's a hard sell, man. That's a hard sell.
Well, like some of the seaweeds you get here, you can just eat, and they're sweet. They're sweet. They're like just.
See, this is it.
Look at the Japanese; they eat seaweed all the time.
This is it. I think, but like you have got a very again though that your experience of beaches are wildly different to ours. Like none of your beaches have got shopping trolleys, a half-bust football. There's always a full can of Coke.
The water in the wee pools has not got that petrol glaze on it.
It's got a wee petrol glaze, a wee bit brown, and this foam, this mystery foam.
What is that foam?
Nobody knows what it is, but it's just there. You know what I mean? You're like,
that doesn't sound too appealing enough.
No, it's not. It's really not. Come on, we'll
get yourself to Tyree. Get yourself to Tyree and you'll see some proper beaches then.
Start eating some of that seaweed.
That's your second holiday.
So tell me,
eat yourself in gently.
So you were talking about water mint. Now, I'm going to ask something very stupid here, right?
Excellent.
What is that? Right now, don't say that it's mint that grows in water, because that'll make me feel fucking ridiculous.
It's not.
Right, okay.
Don't worry. It's a good question. It's just a type of mint, but I think the reason it's called water mint is because it usually grows on parts of the ground where there's been, say, like a pool in the winter. So you see your fields and there's a lot of rain, got a pool. By the time the kind of spring comes, there's usually, I think it's spring. Alan, again, he collects the botanicals. There's usually some mint that's grown there if it's been there. So yeah, almost self-explanatory, but no, it's a bit different.
See, it's just
what a taste of it. It tastes different than any other mint I've tried.
Really?
It just so much more smell to it, and it's bloody lovely.
I love all that, because we had a guy on the podcast right at the very beginning, a boy called Tom Wishart, who is he was like top 100 barman in
he was
the world, maybe.
He was at the Diageo top 100.
Bar. And he was talking about stuff like that. So he's very much a mixologist, but he hates that terminology. And his family, I think, are from St Kilda originally.
Right.
Like that's where they're. No, that's a joint. So
I'd love to go there.
Aye, but he got some sort of special. Now I could be talking a lot of shit here. This was a long time ago, but he did. But he went somewhere. I think I'm going to say it's St Kilda. I think he got special dispensation to go there and get this particular flower aromatic thing that only grows there, because he had to make a signature cocktail that was I don't know, had something to do with. Well, you're going to say something there, Chris, and pull me out of this hole.
No, he was talking. He went very much into kind of the chemistry and how different spirits kind of all mix with each other, and then used like specific. I'm pretty sure it was like a certain flower, wasn't it? From from St Kilda or in and around that area that kind of complemented a certain. He went really, really down into the kind of chemistry of it all.
That's mental. That'd be great to hear. Dig that one out.
Yeah, it was a really, really. It was like number
3 or something like that.
Number 2 or number 3. But it was like an incredible list.
Yeah. And I think he's his thing is he has now risen to a level of bartender where he doesn't have a job in one pub. He does what they call rockstar shifts, where he just phones a pub and says, "I'm coming in."
All right.
And just rolls in, and then everybody goes, "Yes, Tom's in town." And
I'll be listening to him then. Not only to get
Tom's in town. But yeah, I mean, it was a long time ago we had this conversation, but it was again really, really interesting, and that whole thing about, you know, you hear about people who forage for food, like people who do the foraging, you know, mushrooms and all that sort of stuff, but you don't really think of it in the drinks industry.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Well, that's what a lot of the. I mean, you know, there's so many gins out there now that you know, a lot of them are using that as their selling point, is that they're using ingredients from the place that they're distilling it, and that's you know, that's quite important to us. Saying that, we use 6 ingredients from Tyree. It's quite hard to get some of them. If we have a really dry summer, can't get them. If you have a really wet summer, you can't get them. You need the perfect balance of weather. But yeah, it's good fun trying to find them and using stuff you've picked yourself to make something that's quite a cool experience.
The sustainability of the whole thing must be quite interesting though, because obviously if you scaled up production, then you better get down that beach and start picking some seaweed. Do you know what I mean? We've ran out of fucking seaweed. But that
that's kind of what happens, to be honest. Out with one down. But as I say, we only use a handful per gin. But yeah, if you were up to big amounts, you'd need to be down there quite a lot.
Tyree's become one big distillery. Just
sounds like it was years ago.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you ever? I mean, obviously it was a long, long time ago that happened. So, but have any of the stories of that era, did they kind of filter through, if you can excuse the pun, to filter through to kind of modern, well, to like told as folklore almost?
Yeah, there's probably 2 that I can think of that are quite funny. There's some that you know are good stories, but maybe not too funny. But I think there was one when I think there was gaugers is what they called them, and that was like excise men that came to the island to try and find folk that were making whiskey illegally. And there was one woman that was, and there was actually quite a few women that did it. It wasn't always men. And this woman, I think she lived in Moss, I think it was, which is a part of the island. And somebody asked, "Where will I get a bottle of whiskey?" The excise man did. And they said, "Oh, go to this house in Moss." So they went to the house. And the woman knew right away it wasn't one of her usual customers, so she thought, right away, this is a bit fishy. So she gave him a bottle of whiskey, took it away. He was delighted he got it, took it to whoever he had to take to say that, you know, I found somebody distilling whiskey illegally. Took a look at it, poured a sip of it. Turns out it was pish. He'd taken it the whole way from that distillery, well, just a house, and then gave it to his boss, who then took a sip of it and realised it was pish. So you don't know how exaggerated that is, but that was the story. But you know,
she was really dehydrated.
You had the fear about drinking whiskey in its normal state. Imagine drinking that stuff, man. A hangover wouldn't be as bad, I'm sure.
No.
I'm getting asparagus.
That is incredible.
Oh
yeah, that's probably one of the best stories and that was apparently true, you know. But it's a good way, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, yeah. So.
Right, well, gentlemen, I think I'll call it a day there. Ian, listen, thank you very much for giving us some of your time and educating us about all things Tyree and all things Bevy. And I wish you the best of luck for the future.
Oh, thanks very much for having me along as well. Really enjoyed it.
No problem at all. Yeah, and hopefully Chris and I will be gracing the shores in the not too distant future. I will
give us a shout whenever you're here, and we'll get a couple of drams down us. And don't worry, it won't be piss. It'll be
I'm on to you, son. I'm on to you. Right, okay, boys, I'm going to sign off just now. Thanks you very much for listening, folks. Please hit those like and subscribe buttons.